And welcome to Alpha Egg Summit. We want to thank you for on whatever platform you are streaming the program on. I'm KLGR Farm Director Scott Colome in Redwood Falls. It is time for our Farmer Rancher panel here on KLG on the Alpha Egg Network Egg Summit. And it's brought to you by B&S Auction Sales and Grand River Welding Institute. Before we get to our panel, if you would want to see more details about the distinguished panelists that we have, you can go to the alphaeggsummit.com, click on speakers to learn more about them. They include Barb Downey of Downey Ranch in Wamingo, Kansas, Kevin Ross of the Corn Board of the National Corn Growers Association in Minden, Iowa, April Hennis of the United Soybean Board, Kevin Paap of the American Farm Bureau and Minnesota Farm Bureau, Mike Hightailing of PC Ag Solutions in Michigan, and Dustin Stanton of Stanton Brothers Farm and the Boone County Farm Bureau in Centralia, Missouri. Before we begin, we remind everyone that the views and opinions expressed on this summit are not those of Alpha Media and do not represent the viewpoints of Alpha Egg Network stations, their farm directors, or management. This broadcast is protected by copyright law, and credit should be given whenever sharing or reposting of this video. And if you're watching this, you can ask questions. Go into the chat. Ask your question at alphaeggsummit.com. And before we get into our questions, let's hear from each of our panelists with an opening statement. We'll start from the top, and Barb Downey of Downey Ranch.
Good afternoon, all. I'm super glad to be here. I think we've got some interesting things to talk about. I am a cow-calf operator from Northeast Kansas. We have a seed stock and a commercial operation, and we're participants in U.S. Premium Beef, partial owner of the number 4 packer in the U.S. So excited to see what everyone has to say today.
Well, thank you, Barb, for being here today. We send it over to Kevin Ross, chairman of the Corn Board and the National Corn Growers.
Yeah, hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on here today. And again, I'm Kevin Ross, chairman of the National Corn Growers Association, farmer from Southwest Iowa. We're just outside the Council Bluffs, Omaha area. Farm corn, soybeans, and have a cow-calf herd ourselves down here. And do a little work in the biodiesel and ethanol industries as well. So excited to be on today. National Corn Growers represents 40,000 dues paying members and 300,000 plus checkoff members as well, or contributors as well. And I'm just happy to be on here today to talk a little bit about corn issues and a lot of good things going on in the corn market right now, and a lot more excited to with prices that we've been seeing here lately. So thanks for having me on.
And going over from corn, we head over to another part of Iowa, and April Hennis of the United Soybean Board over in Hampton.
Yeah, hi. Hampton's north central Iowa. I'm a farmer. I farm my family's Century Farm, corn and soybeans. What makes me a little bit different than everyone else, most others, is I'm the farmer. My husband has the real job in town, so I make all the decisions. But I'm also on the United Soybean Board and Iowa Soybean Board. So we just got done with American Soybean Association policy, and we all know how important policy is these days. So I have a lovely studio here to broadcast from. But I'm excited to be here and glad we have 2 Iowa farmers on this panel.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon, April. Heading over to South Central Minnesota, Kevin Paap. Of course, Kevin, president of Minnesota Farm Bureau, and also sits on the American Farm Bureau Board. Kevin?
Hello, everybody. I'm Kevin Paap. I farm with my wife, Julie, here in Blue Earth County, Minnesota. We raise corn and soybeans, and also president, Minnesota Farm Bureau. Happy to be on.
And from the Midwest, we head over to Michigan, and Mike Hightailing, he's the general manager of PC Ag Solutions. Mike, your thoughts on the the current situation in agriculture.
Hey, glad to be here today. Like I said, Mike Hufftail. I'm Central Michigan. I'm a row crop farmer. Grow sugar beets, cucumbers, edible beans, and corn and soybeans too. Just happy to be here and whatever discussion comes up today.
And finally, we head back down to Missouri and Dustin Stanton of Stanton Brothers Farms.
Hi there. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today, especially the distinguished panelist here. Come from a very diversified family farm, very traditional in the sense that my family has been on the farm since 1845. Traditional Midwestern farm with beef, cattle, and row crops. But my brother and I actually started our own diversified operation as well, called Stanton Brother Eggs. And so we supply eggs directly to consumers, and we hold the nation's largest independent free-range egg operation here as well.
And of course, as we know, 2020 has been a very unusual year for producers, whether it be from trade talks to trade wars or extreme weather like we've been seeing across the nation in the last several weeks. Starting off with some of the items from a national level, of course, the new Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, and a familiar face to many on the panel. We'll start with Kevin, the National Court's thoughts on having Vilsack back at USDA and what could mean row crop farmers.
Yeah, appreciate that, and we're excited to have Secretary Vilsack back in that spot. I think from not just an Iowan perspective by any means, it was good to have somebody familiar with the position coming back in there, and I think it's pretty easy to see for him, having been there the full term and full 8 years the last time. You can tell that he has a passion for the job, and certainly and must have enjoyed what he's doing, or else he wouldn't be back. But he did a good job for us, I think, representing agriculture within the Obama administration, and really was one of a very friendly voice in that administration, and we needed that, I think, in a lot of different areas of agriculture. And so I'm excited about having him there. I think his just his enthusiasm and also knowledge of the policies coming in makes him, a really good fit to hit the ground running and not have to go through some of the growing pains I think you see normally when somebody takes over that position. And really, his also having that previous experience there, we should have a lot of, I think, a lot more influence within this administration from his senior position amongst the cabinet members. So we're excited to see that at corn, and I think a lot of the other commodities would tell you the same thing.
And of course, trade continues to be an issue, and I know many producers looking at some of the expanded and up and down to the markets. April, I know that the United Soybean Board always trying to expand soy's use. And how did 2020 treat that for U.S. soy?
Well, even though, that's what's surprising to me in looking at charts, even though we did have some of the issues in trade, China was still a huge buyer. And what makes it so exciting on the United Soybean Board and working with USEC, United Soybean Export Council, is we still carried on with COVID. I did a lot of talks. I would be on the phone with Morocco and then Romania or China, so we still got to, through technology, talk to our buyers. And that's really important for soybeans because it's so highly exported. So, through technology, we were still able to make those great key contacts and talk with our buyers. So.
And when it comes to some of the more domestic issues, and that includes the coronavirus situation and many producers having to deal with the fact that maybe incomes were lower or they had to apply for more federal assistance this year. Barb, as a cattle producer in Kansas, how did COVID-19 impact your operations this year?
Well, we have a bull sale on the ranch, and it greatly impacted the physical process of having what is typically a couple hundred folks onto your operation at any given time. We came through that all right with the use of technology. We auction bulls online all by video. So the way we were already doing things helped in that transition. But you mentioned, federal government. I think for a lot of our customers and my fellow cow-calf producers, 2020 ended up, because of CFAP, because of some of the other government programs, ended up being maybe a better year when the dust settled than what we thought maybe when we were in the thick of all of that, in terms of all of the cattle operations.
And Barbie, you mentioned the federal government and, of course, the challenges of 2020. And, of course, that also impacted the meat producers and meat packers. Did that have a major impact on whether you were able to get your livestock out to market this year?
It did. We had cattle on feed like a lot of folks. I mentioned in the intros that we're founding members of U.S. Premium Beef, which is both the right and the obligation to deliver one head of finished beef per slot owned. So we got bumped back a couple of weeks, but we were able to deliver cattle pretty much on schedule. We did go ahead and try to be very proactive. As soon as you saw what was coming in March, we stepped the cattle back to a slower ration, just trying to be prepared. Cattle industry worked really well together to try to get through some of those slugs in production, try to prioritize the fattest cattle. And I think we saw a good deal of cooperation. And again, when the dust settled, things maybe weren't as bad as they could have been.
It's always good to hear. I know many producers, we always try to find that silver lining in everything. Heading over to Michigan,
Yeah.
Mike, was there anything unique in terms of impacts to Michigan agriculture due to 2020? And is that going to impact 2021 at all?
Well, here in Michigan, we grow a lot of specialty crops. And one of the main things we noticed really in our area up in the Saginaw Valley was COVID affected our supply of dry edible beans. We went from barely any demand to suddenly just crazy demand for dry edible beans. So it really disrupted that market slightly. The issues with immigration, with COVID, with state-to-state interstate travel has been hard on a lot of specialty crop producers, the apple producers, cucumber producers that rely on migrant labor. So those were some unique challenges to 2020. I'm part of a Michigan Sugar Cooperative. We're processing sugar beets into sugar all winter, and we're very concerned about how COVID has affected our workforce and try and keep those factories running with short staff because of sicknesses or quarantines and whatnot. So 2020 was a very unique year for sure.
And you mentioned the sugar beets, of course, that very big down here in southern Minnesota and also northwestern Minnesota, where we saw producers have to leave the crop in the ground due to the fact that they just couldn't get it out. Was there anything like that in Michigan where producers were finding themselves having to actually pay back the cooperatives for a product that they couldn't get into the plants?
2019, the very wet harvest in 19 impacted that, leaving crop in the ground, and then a poor storage winter. We skated through in Michigan. We got all of our crop out of the ground, got all of it processed fine through the 20 processing year. So we really came out a lot better than our counterparts in Minnesota and the Dakotas. So we were smiling for that.
So when it comes to trade being a major issue, Kevin, I know that with the Minnesota Farm Bureau and the American Farm Bureau Federation continues to see some commodities benefiting more than others. Your thoughts on which ones were kind of the winners versus others in 2020?
Well, I think, agriculture is certainly a winner as we look at trade. We sometimes forget that 96% of the people in the world don't live in the United States. And as we look at our customers, we've got to look to that international market. Certainly, trade is critical to our economic success, and certainly China is a big part of that. We had the China Phase 1 agreement. We had a 30% increase. We didn't quite live up to where it is, but I think what we need to remember specifically with China is the United States now, we only have 14% of their ag import market. So there's a lot of room to grow there. We need to continue to work on that. But we want to make sure trade, no matter whether it's with China, any place else, that it's open markets, it's rules-based, it's negotiated agreements. Trade is really the future to our success.
Now, shifting over to the Biden administration, of course, one of their big aspects and aspirations is climate change and how agriculture can impact that. Barb, has the cattle industry responded well to when folks talk about the cattle industry and climate change? I know some folks have said that, well, if the cattle and the cattle burps or farts, that they have issues with. But when it comes to climate change and the discussions with cattle producers, what's been the response?
I think we're positioning ourselves better. We've had some behind the scenes work going on for a number of years. There's some work coming out of UC Davis with Dr. Frank Mittliner talking about, we got a black eye with livestock's long shadow, that report, and crawling out from under that has been a long work, but I think we're making real good progress in understanding that the carbon input into the atmosphere by cattle is a cyclical and a net zero. And in fact, we have a smaller beef herd now than we had in the 1970s, so you could argue that it is possibly even less. What we've got to do is make sure that we are differentiating ourselves from a net increase in carbon in the atmosphere, whether that's due to, the easy one is fossil fuel burning. So we're working very aggressively on making sure that consumers understand the effects and the positive effects that livestock can have on the carbon cycle and actually pulling carbon out of the air.
Well, and you mentioned the trying to decrease the use of fossil fuels, and of course, we're all finally digging out of the February outbreak of Arctic air and snow that had a long tail across virtually all of the central U.S., from the U.S.-Canada border to the U.S.-Mexico border. Although bitterly cold air, snow, and in some cases rolling blackouts made for some long nights, not only for your family, but for many ranchers, have you heard much in other areas of losses due to the weather?
I'm not hearing, I think everyone, we were reasonably well prepared. Folks like us, we are calving some of our earliest calving ones. So everyone I know was out literally, around the clock, watching for newborn calves, making sure we got them warmed up and all of that. So there was a lot of work that, while it caused a lot of stress and strain on the operators, I think we did our jobs, and the livestock have fared reasonably well. It's just a case of being proactive and being out there and doing what we're supposed to do by our livestock.
And Barb, shifting into 2021, what are your thoughts, and what do you expect to see in the U.S. cattle market as we move through the year?
I'm hoping things are going to start increasing. Kevin was talking about trade a little bit and the importance of China, and China trade right now for beef exports is at record levels, both in terms of tonnage and dollars. So of course, and then he mentioned that, we only about 14% of their consumption of ag products is US. So there's huge upside potential there. And we're definitely a world market. I think we're positioned well. The beef herd is starting to increase, but I think there's some real opportunity in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years for most U.S. cattle producers to take advantage of an improving market.
I wholeheartedly agree on that. Moving over to Kevin Ross. Kevin, of course, renewable fuels and ethanol continue to be the big story, especially since with COVID-19 we saw a drop in demand again, seeing the latest report from the Energy Information Administration regarding that, the National Corn Board and National Corn Growers, their thoughts on the increased use of biofuels and the possible mandates from the Biden administration versus all electric vehicles. And could we still see this as maybe an upswing for ethanol usage when we're trying to get more renewable fuel and cleaner air back into the U.S. transportation system?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the future in general for ethanol is still very bright. I think we've got we've got competition coming in the marketplace when you talk about energy sources in general, and certainly EVs would fall into that same bucket when you're speaking of electric vehicles. But they've got a lot of challenges ahead as well, and they're certainly fighting for their market share, or what they believe they can potentially have as market share. But I'm excited about the future of ethanol still. I think we've got some good initiatives in place to continue to build out the E15 market from where it's currently at, and it's an emerging expansion of ethanol use right now, and even beyond that, I think we see a pretty easily attainable extra 5 billion gallons or so of that market share, and really increased use in the tank for ethanol. And we've seen a lot of benefits to the environment from our current usage levels even, and we think we can continue to increase those. So just as Barb was talking about with the great things the cattle industry has been doing for for the environment, and really evaluating their footprints. We've worked closely with cattlemen, because we know that our footprint from corn ties so closely with theirs, as well as pork and chickens as well, in the poultry industry. So all of this, when it comes to feed, and April would, I'm sure, tell you the same thing, when the soybean industry has been doing their part to build on this life cycle analysis that we all talk about, and how this all builds into the big picture. And for us, those things are, it's really meaningful on both sides of that, whether it's the fuel side with ethanol, because we think we can compete with EVs, down the road. However you want to look at it, I think from a carbon footprint standpoint, we can compete with them all day long. And that's something that as we move forward, I believe that the ethanol market will be stable, and certainly be able to increase if we can get just a little bit of the right help on some policy that we think could be coming. We've been working on some ourselves in a bill that Sherry Bustos introduced the tail end of last year. And I think you're going to hear a lot more talk about that within this next administration, and how that moves forward. We want to be smart about it. We want to be responsible, but we also know that we've got extra capacity out there, and really, even though we've seen prices move here recently for the grains and other commodities, I think we know how quickly high prices can change, and especially when we'll go out there and you'll see farmers invest more in this next crop. You'll see a significant increase, barring major weather events. We should have a big crop out there and large acreages planted, and so you'll see over time you'll see these stocks come back, and we know that we've got capacity out there to continue to grow. So again, I'm excited about the future of ethanol. Do we have competition with other sources? Absolutely. But I think that's just something that we're used to, and something we know we've got to fight for every little inch that we get when it comes to the share of the tank, or the share of the the fuel scenario that's out there right now. But we're happy to do that because we got a great product moving forward.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like agriculture and the renewable fuels have a very bright future, especially when it comes to the impact of climate change, and how agriculture can actually kind of be a mover to help better the environment. Want to remind folks that if you head over to alphaagsummit.com, you can register for a chance to win a trip to Sarasota, Florida, to enjoy deep sea fishing with our friends at Double Nickel Siesta Key Charters. So again, you want to make sure as you're watching this video on alphaagsummit.com, be sure to register for that. Of course, as we move through 2021, the environment continues to be a major issue, and so does COVID-19. And one of the big things is the fact that many of the trade shows have been having to go virtual or online due to various restrictions. Kevin, of course, I know you're involved with the American Farm Bureau and Minnesota Farm Bureau Federations. Your thoughts on the possibility of a virtual commodity classic that's going to be happening next week, and producers expect you and maybe get more producers engaged so they don't have to worry about their livestock or being livestock for several days.
Well, certainly that the COVID has changed not only how we live, but how we learn, how we work, quite frankly, how we do farm bureau business or commodity business. And it really, whether it's things like Commodity Classic, those types of things where we're learning about the new research, technology, sustainability. It's also with the new administration and the fact that we've got a lot of new leaders in agriculture. We've got new members. And COVID has made us, we need to adjust, adapt to enhance our methods to engage. And we're going to continue to work on virtual and remote options, whether it's working with elected appointed officials, whether it's attending our local, state, or national farm group meetings, or big events like Commodity Classic. The American Farm Bureau annual meeting was virtual. And what it did do is it allowed an awful lot of members that have never been to one of those activities participate in that. And that's a good thing. And quite frankly, I don't think we'll ever go completely back to where we were. I think virtual will always be a part of this. We always have to reach out to our members that can't get away from the farm or can't get away from the family and things like that. So, not a lot of good things happening because of COVID, but I think one of the things certainly is the ability to do things virtually. Whether it's any of those events or, quite frankly, this event that we're at right now, we still need to understand that high-speed broadband is pretty important to every one of us. And I think that's the one thing we've all learned is how important broadband is, how we live, how we learn, how we do medicine. It's involved in everything.
And you've been watching the Farmer and Rancher panel on the Alpha Ag Summit, all part of the Alpha Ag Network. And we want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. The Ag Network, along with our sponsors, is proud to bring you this Ag Summit. And a special thank you to our presenting sponsor, Hitchpin.com. Remember that the views and opinions expressed on today's panel are not those of Alpha Media and do not represent the viewpoints of Alpha Ag Network stations, their farm directors, or management. The broadcast is protected by copyright law, and credit should be given whenever or of the video. We're going to head into our closing statements, starting off first with Barb Downey. Barb?
I don't like being at the top of this panel because I have to go first, Scott. But I think the general attitudes around agriculture, I think this, times of great change, I always like to think about as times of great opportunity. Sometimes we need a crisis to get us off center and get us to make a move and to innovate in new and different ways. And I think, to the point that was made, there will be a lot of changes going forward in how we do business. And if we can use our collective brain power to figure out where we're going, how to position ourselves to take advantage of that and how to fit in, then I think we will be better off looking to the future rather than trying to recreate what was in the past. That's important for me as a business person to always be looking forward, and it's important to us as an industry to be doing that too. So I think this is great opportunity, and I appreciate this opportunity to be here today.
Thank you for being on the panel today, Barb. Kevin, of course, as you mentioned, the future looks bright for U.S. corn and U.S. ethanol. Your closing thoughts.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say appreciate the opportunity to be with you all today, and thank the fellow panelists on here. You got a lot of great folks that you got on here now, but certainly throughout the day and tomorrow, it looks like you guys got some good stuff going on with the Alpha Ag Summit here, and just appreciate the opportunity to be on here with everybody. But from a corn standpoint, as I was saying, very excited about the future of the corn industry. I think in general, we just have such an exciting crop and has so many uses that are out there. And I think we've continued to see improvements in the way we farm and the way we produce it. And those are also just exciting things that we get to have a chance to be a part of. And the technology that we work with as well is something I'd be remiss to mention that. I think we can all echo Paap's comments about broadband being something real important. So looking forward to working with all the crew on the future of getting that done, so we all have a little bit better connection speeds for things like this and others. But some good things going on this summer. I'd love to just throw it out there that we've got a great opportunity to talk about our story as corn with the Field of Dreams game that's going to happen in Dyersville, Iowa here this summer. Was supposed to happen last summer, and with all the things going on with sports being moved all around, it didn't happen, and they postponed it. But we're real excited to have that opportunity to talk to the American public and certainly a different, very broad audience that'll be tuning into that baseball game. And what a great setting to talk about all the different uses and the things that we can do with corn. And you can't get a whole lot better than all the different pieces that kind of tie in together between growing corn and all the parts of a baseball game or even the sport that really just have a lot of similarities into growing a crop and the struggles that you go through, whether it's the curveball they throw or things along those lines. That there's always a curveball that's getting thrown at us in ag, it seems like, in one way or another. And sometimes it might brush you back from the plate, but you always step back in there and take another swing. So that's what we're kind of looking forward to for the summer. I think that's one of the great things. And hopefully next week, the Commodity Classic, you mentioned that earlier. Really excited to see a lot of fellow folks via online. I hate to say it won't be the same, but on the other hand, as Barb said, it's an opportunity to try something different and get more people involved in different ways. So if you haven't, gone on there and registered, I think the first 5,000 or so is free, and I'm not sure. I think it's pretty reasonable dollar amount to tune in after that. So would love to have a really big crowd there. I think there's going to be a lot of great information at Commodity Classic, just as usual. I think there's 50 different educational series or different pieces through Commodity Classic there. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to being back in person in New Orleans next year. So thanks for having me on, and just appreciate being on the panel with everybody else.
And of course, we're always trying to swing for the fences, especially when it comes to the Field of Dreams. Also joining us on today's panel was April Hennis. She's with the United Soybean Board. April, your thoughts as we round out the panel today?
Yeah, well, I'd like to echo Kevin. Thank you so much for having me on. And with soybeans, it's always exports. But here in Iowa, we're biodiesel and meal. We feed the most hogs and laying hens. So meal, and that is always big. But with this new administration coming in and new focus on climate change and all that, I keep hearing regenerative ag. So they've kind of moved past sustainability and onto regenerative. And I just have to remind them, when they want us to do, we farmers, to do all these conservation acts, it's like, I've been doing that for 35 years on my farm, So what I think I've done cover crops, no-till, things like that, and a lot of farmers do. So we just need to tell our story more and get it out there and let the world know we're doing the right thing, by the environment and making our soils healthier. So with help from ag media, that will help us. But as always, ag is an exciting and fun place to be in, and I'm hopefully get to continue it for a long time, and very happy to be here. But farmers, don't forget to tell our story.
It's the story of agriculture, of course. If we don't tell it, who will?
That's
and of
right.
course, when it comes to policy, Kevin, I know we talk about the issues with the new administration, the American Farm Bureau's thoughts and yours on what we can expect as we move into a new year and hopefully back into something more normal.
I think, farmers and ranchers have learned at a very early age from their fathers, or quite frankly, maybe from their grandfathers, that working together works. We learn that when we're working multi-generational operations, when we're working with our neighbors, or we're working with others. And I think what farmers and ranchers need to continue to do is just be good examples. And whether that's farm organizations working together, if that's government working together, working together works, and you can get a whole lot more done. So we're going to work together with everybody else as we look at climate solutions, not only other people in agriculture, but people outside of agriculture. And the other thing we've learned at that early age is flexibility. In agriculture, we've got to be flexible. We're dependent on the weather. Many days we wake up and we're going to do something different based on things out of our control. So I just think we all need to remember those two lessons, that working together works and being flexible is pretty important to our success.
A reminder that Alpha Ag Network is local farm programming, promoting, respecting, and celebrating the industry that drives our communities. That is agriculture. For the Alpha Ag Network, I'm Scott Colomb. Thanks for joining us.